Well, we're learning now about how cells are built into other structures called tissues, and then we'll learn how tissues are put into organs. But we've only made it through one of the tissue types, muscles. Now it's time to talk about the second one, which is epithelium. Again, that's sort of the skin part, but not just the skin on the outside of an organism, skins on the inside too that line different parts of the inside of an organism. Um, these are the boundaries, just like lipids are the boundaries of the subcellular systems, organelles, and on the outside of the cell itself. These epithelial cells and all their different derivatives are forming boundaries between different parts of an organism. Epithelial cells are very important. They stick together side by side so that they can form that nice layer. And because of that, they have kind of a left, a right, forward, back, up, and down. The left, right, forward, and back are all kind of symmetric, but the up and the down are not necessarily symmetric because one side might be pointing into a cavity and the other side might be pointing to something else on the other side. So the up and down matters in the epithelial cells. A good activity to think about is how you might make a batch of pancakes in zero gravity. You can't just pour the batter onto a griddle because there's no gravity to weigh it down and make it flatten out. If you tried to pour the batter, it would just form a giant sphere floating around in space. Gravity generates very few forces inside of cells, so gravity is also not going to help make a nice flat layer of cells. So if you wanted cells to kind of spread out and make a nice flat layer, how would you do this? For example, the squamous cells are nice and flat like a pancake. So what is it that allows them to make themselves flat? Turns out that there are fibers that pull the top and bottom together, and there are other kind of attachments that allow the cell to grab forward and backwards and side to side. Okay. Now, epithelial cells might just, in your mind, be a layer like a balloon around water in a water balloon. But they're not just that. They definitely do lots of jobs. For example, a little story here that might illustrate this. There are epithelial cells, actually called endothelial cells, on the inside of blood vessels. So they kind of waterproof the blood vessel to make sure the blood doesn't get out. But they don't just do the waterproofing. They also release important factors that allow the blood vessel to function properly. And in one case, a technician in a lab was supposed to do a certain job. I believe it was to stuff a rod down the tiny little blood vessel. And in doing so, he dislodged some of the cells that were coating the inside. And so the blood vessel didn't function the proper way. And it turned out that it was releasing something that the scientists later described as endothelium-derived relaxing factor, EDRF. And EDRF turned out to be a very simple molecule made of just one nitrogen and one oxygen, nitric oxide, NO. And they won the Nobel Prize because they found out that NO is a signaling molecule inside of the cell that's very important, inside of the body, inside of those blood vessels, that is very important to regulating blood pressure. And now a lot of drugs are used that help release NO and allow blood flow to be properly maintained. So that's just one example where this tissue, the epithelial type tissue, is more than just waterproofing, more than just forming a boundary. It does a lot of releasing of important ingredients. If you're going a little deeper, this is a great time to read the leaf, How Are Cells Arranged in an Epithelium? Because it gives you all you need to know about the different kinds of boundary layers inside of the human body.